Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. From K-pop and K-dramas and now to Korean literature, global interest in Korean storytelling continues to grow. Now, at this year's LA Times Festival of Books, Korean writers met readers face-to-face in Los Angeles, and Korean literature drew some of its strongest international attention yet. And novelist Kang continues to be recognized on the global literary stage, with The Vegetarian recently named among the favorite International Booker Prize winners and also included on the Guardian's list of the 100 greatest novels of all time. So what is driving the global rise of Korean literature, and where does it go from here on? For answers to this, we connect to Jennifer Kwon Dobbs, professor of English at St. Olaf College, who's also a poet and essayist herself. A big welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good to see you. And also joining us is Barbara Zitwer, CEO of Barbara J. Zitwer International Literary Agency. Good to see you.
Pleasure.
So let's start our discussion right away. First with Professor Dobbs. So we hear that you recently took part in this LA Times Festival of Books. So as someone who was there in person, what stood out to you most about the atmosphere and also the response from readers?
It was a really terrific experience. I think in a couple words, I would say just excitement and also enthusiasm. The organization, Literature Translation Institute of Korea, put together an extraordinary program under the leadership of President Chun and her team. I was especially excited by the range of readers who showed up to talk with the Korean writers and myself at all of the different events. I'd say that the readers ranged from students to professors, given some of the events were at universities, like, for example, California State, San Bernardino, but also at the LA Times Book Festival and at the Korean Cultural Center, as well as at the LA Downtown Library. There were a range of readers of all ages, and I thought that was so extraordinary and exciting. What I especially noticed was that young readers were drawn to Korean literature. And I want to say, like, high school students, students who were young adults in their late teens, early 20s, and readers of all kinds of diverse backgrounds. There wasn't one particular type of reader, in other words, who was attracted to the work of the writers who were participating with me as part of this event at the LA Times Book Festival. So I was exceptionally excited about that fact.
Wow, so Korean literature really does seem to be reaching a broader range of audiences right now. And at this year's festival, there seemed to be much stronger interest in Korean literature overall, especially following the recent global success of Korean authors and translated works as well. Ms. Zitwer, as a literary agent, do you feel Korean literature is now becoming more mainstream in the U.S. market?
Definitely. I definitely think so. And I'm very happy about that, because that was a goal of mine when I started working with Korean books about 12 years ago or more, 15 years ago. I always felt that Korean literature should be among mainstream literature in the world and not pigeonholed into one kind of genre, that it was just great writing. And of course, Koreans have a voice, but I've been thrilled to see my dream come true, actually.
Oh, okay. So I just want to ask, that was your dream, like, broadening and shedding light to Korean literature as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. As a matter of fact, I had said years ago that I was asked I've done many interviews over the years, and everyone always used to ask me, do you think a Korean could ever win the Nobel Prize? And I'm like, yeah, of course they will. And I predicted that Hong Kong or Kyung Suk Shin would win. And I was extremely thrilled that Hong Kong won. It was great.
Right. It was a very historic moment for many of us as well. Now, going back to this festival, this year's event also brought together Korean writers, diaspora writers, and bilingual authors from very different backgrounds as well. So, as a Korean American writer yourself, Professor Dobbs, how do you see the global landscape of Korean literature evolving today?
No, the writers at the festival were just absolutely extraordinary. I was so thrilled to be able to be in conversation with the poet Lee Min-ha, as well as, in particular, I want to say the novelist Park Sung-young. And I think that their work speaks to the ways in which Korean literature, and I'm sure Barbara will agree with this, how inventive the literature is, especially with going into the deep interior lives of everyday individuals. And here I'm thinking especially about the beauty of the language, to imagine through meticulous imagery, the interiority of everyday experience and the everyday violences that are part of a 21st century life, overwhelmed by the forces that make up our rapid modern globalized world. Here I'm thinking about how when I first began reading Korean literature, back when I was a graduate student at the University of Southern California, I'm earning my PhD in literature and creative writing at USC. How I really fell in love with the literature that had been translated by Brother Anthony of Taizé, that's Aung Song-jae, and also brought to the forefront by critics like Min An-kyung, who is professor at Seoul National. And some of those early works that were translated were of poets and writers from the 70s and 80s. I'm thinking about, for example, the poet Kim Ha, who was such an important poet speaking about people's struggle and Korea's struggle for democracy. And to see how Korean literature and translation has expanded, not only in terms of that historical sweep of the struggles for democracy, those large questions that are at the core of Korean 20th, 21st century experience, but also moved into the everyday lives with a sense of deep urgency and intimacy. And I also want to just say, too, the power of writers who are younger, of women especially. Here I'm thinking, too, about diasporic writers and also younger women translators, Sora Kim Russell, who translated Son Jung-tae, Wolves, a collection of short stories focused on Korean experience in Mongolia. I'm thinking, too, about a recent collection that came out by the emerging translator Archana Madhavan of Lee Jani. Anyway, all of this is just to say that Korean literature has become a world literature because of the diversity of translators, the diversity of experiences that are all committed to this incredible interiority and imagination that I think is a signature of Korean literature. And I'm just so excited to see how dynamic Korean literature is in the world.
Right. Thank you for that response, Professor Dobbs. It really, I felt the sincerity of your words hearing it from here. Now, of course, when we go back to one of the writers who has played a major role, we've touched upon her a while ago, in this global expansion is, of course, novelist Kang. Her novel, The Vegetarian, was recently selected as one of the readers' favorite International Booker Prize winners and also entered the Guardian's list of 100 greatest novelists. Ms. Zitwer, why do you think her work really resonates so strongly with Western readers?
I think that she won the Booker, when she won the Booker Prize, she got a lot of acclaim and a lot of people noticed her. And I think when she won the Nobel Prize, more people noticed her. So I think that the fact that she won the Booker Prize and the Nobel Prize is directly related to her global fame and her global sales. And when I started working with her, I remember in Korea, she had sold like maybe not even 6,000 copies of The Vegetarian or her book. And in the world, slowly, people would read it and whatever. But I remember, I think I was in the London Book Fair maybe when she won the Booker Prize. And there was a huge boom. As soon as a book or an author wins a Booker Prize or the Nobel Prize, certainly, the publishers get behind them. They publish hundreds of thousands of copies. Everyone wants to read the book. I think so. The fact that she won those prizes directly affected and brought millions of readers to her. Then, of course, they read her work, and her work of The Vegetarian. It's a very, to me, I think it's a book about feminism, about a woman and the marginalization of women. That's why I was always very attracted to it, and it's very simple. It's a metaphor of a woman turning into a tree. It's very unique. So I think that the professor, I agree with her about women writers dominating a lot of Korean literature, and a lot of the women writers that I represent, Kyung Suk Shin, Ha Young Pyun, Zhang Yuzhang, Kim A. Ran, I can't even, all of them, but all the women writers, I began to understand. I looked at my list, and they were all dealing with the same struggle and the marginalization of women. And I think it was 20, maybe 30 years ago now, but women never dominated the publishing world in Korea. That totally changed with Please Look After Mom, which sold more copies. When it was published, the year it was published, it sold 60% of all the copies in Korea of all books published. And of course, Hong Kong has surpassed that. But, you know, I think that women writers really have given the world a new voice, and a voice in Korea and the world. And so that's extremely exciting. Mm-hmm. I have, so I think Hong Kong was fortunate and talented, but you have to be lucky too. Right. You know, there's a lot of great writers who could win the Booker Prize or the Nobel Prize. Mm-hmm. The fact that she did, of course, she deserves it, and her work is brilliant. I actually always thought Human Acts would be the book that, and I was talking with her, her former English publisher, and when she won the Booker Prize, I think it was for The Vegetarian, we were like thrilled, but we thought Human Acts was the big breakout book. Now I see that Human Acts, people are reading it. I think it's a bestseller in America. It's selling a lot. I mean, all over, people are discovering that book. So
it kind of paved the way.
What?
It kind of paved the way to shed light on more of her works and also Korean literature, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that is without a doubt. I know because I'm in the business of selling books, and I'm in the publishing business. When an author wins the Nobel, and Pulitzer Prize, the Booker Prize, the National Book Award, they go from maybe selling 5,000 copies to 800,000 copies. I have names of other authors. So also, I think that the Korean wave and the thirst and the desire and the popularity of Korean books has grown due to the global interest in Korean culture, in, I think, pop, K-pop. I think during COVID, people were sitting at home and watching K-dramas, which they had never watched before. And I spoke to a lot of young editors who told me that, oh my God, we're learning Korean. We're taking Korean lessons. We're coming to Korea, and they're discovering Korean literature in the past few years because they were watching K-pop and listening to BTS, Blackpink, the films Parasite, an Oscar-winning film with subtitles. You know, I think all the arts and helped one another and another, and it's finally affected Korean literature in the most fantastic way.
Right. But
I think.
of course, of course. Another thing I want to talk about is, the success of this vegetarian. I believe it wasn't really driven only by Han Kang's writing itself. Of course, it was incredible, but also by the strength of its English translation as well. So, Mr. Ward, how important do you think is translation in helping this work truly connect with global readers?
Well, I think that it's very well translated, but there are a lot of brilliant translators. And I think the book is what people were driven by. And yes, it was very well translated, but let's not forget, Hong Kong is the author and it's her story. And I think that that's what drove the book. I mean, Deborah Smith is a good translator. There are brilliant Chi Young Kim, Sora Kim Russell, Brother Anthony, Sean Lynn Halbert. I mean, I could go on and name many books that many translators. As a matter of fact, just to give you another perspective, I read another translator's book, another translation of The Vegetarian by another translator who I won't name, but she has become a famous translator. And I thought it was fantastic then, but Granta wanted Deborah Smith's translation. So I think Deborah Smith, she has a camaraderie, an understanding, a friendship with Hong Kong. And without translators, you wouldn't have any translated foreign books. Oh, there's Max Porter. But I think it's the author's work and her voice that made that book extraordinary.
Right,
And
definitely.
Deborah's lucky to have translated it.
And also, but speaking of this translation, of course, we're in the age of AI and technology is, of course, developing. So even as AI translation technology continues to develop, when it comes to literature, do you think AI can ever truly replace human translators as well?
Never. I've thought about this. I've read AI translations. I think the issue is emotion, soul, feeling, and AI is a tool and it's generic. It can never replace the soul and the emotion and a human expression, because it's not. It's a tool. And it's not a person. So I've read a lot of AI translations of of books that people send me, of Korean manuscripts, and I could read just to get a feeling of what the plot is or whatever. After reading like 5 pages, I just say I can't take it anymore. I need a great translator.
Right. So it's
and
still
so
quite
for
limited.
real literature and to get a voice of I mean, it will never replace. There will be AI translated books, maybe very commercial or genre or readers who don't care, but no.
A straight flat no. Right.
No, I think it's a tool. It's a tool for,
Right.
editors who are reading, who have like 500 manuscripts they have to get through and read or whatever. But what do you think, Professor?
I completely agree with you, Barbara. I think that AI is a work tool, and folks are using it really well to summarize their email, for example. But translation is an art form, and as much as literature is an art form. And I loved how you described the importance of friendship, the importance of that human connection. The translators who you named, also translators who I've named here in our conversation, are all part of an incredible community. And it's that community that has grown over the past 10, 20 years. And I've been really honored to witness and be a part of that community. It sounds like you also, as you mentioned with your dream, which is a dream I share, of readers learning more and more about the largesse and beauty of Korean literature, that as a world literature, that, it's been this art of translation that has been able to transmit that soul. And again, I just want to really acknowledge the importance of organizations like the Literature Translation Institute of Korea in organizing opportunities to nurture these kinds of friendships and to help grow this community, which has really blossomed and borne fruit in these really exciting ways that we're talking about today.
Well, Professor Dobbs, then do you think
if I can I just want to say, my feeling is that translation is an art. The best I call them magicians.
Absolutely.
I don't know how they do what they do, because I don't read Korean. I don't speak Korean. A lot of books I take on, I just have a feeling for. I don't know why. I just have this feeling. I love this book. Whatever. I read a beautiful translation and I feel like it's an alchemy. It's like they're magicians.
Absolutely.
I don't know how they do what they do. And it's magic. I don't understand it, but I think that great translators are as equal in their art as the authors are in their storytelling and their art. It's different,
Right.
And also I've learned that matching the right translator with the right author is key, because like certain like Sora Kim Russell translates Ha Young Pyun. That's, she's her translator. And a lot of authors work with the same translator and want that translator only. Kyung Suk Shin works with Anton Haar.
Right. So it really does say a lot about the limitations of AI translation, of course. And like you said, it's a very important message to end our discussion tonight. Translating is, in fact, an art. It can't be really replaced by this technology as of now, right? But as for now, I'm afraid we'll have to conclude our discussion right here. Thank you so much for your insights, Professor Dobbs.
Thank you so much. It's been a joy to be in conversation with you and with Barbara in New York.
Me too. And of course,
Yes.
Ms. Zeur, we really appreciate your insights.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame tonight. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.